Good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, December 11th, and in this tub right here is where I'm keeping all of my fig cuttings that I'm rooting. There is a total of 14 different fig cuttings there, and you can see the progress. I'm getting a lot of green shoots developing on a lot of the fig cuttings. Some of these are as old as 6 weeks. Others are less than 2 weeks old. In the case of my Italian 258s, they are my most recent addition. And because the cuttings are in this moist humidity bin, I'm starting to get some fuzzy mold on some of them. And I want to show you how I'm going to treat that fuzzy mold, because it's very important that you keep these cuttings clean so they do not rot. It takes a very long time to get successful roots going, and they have to sit in this moist, humid environment, so rot can be an issue, and you want to do everything you can to prevent that. Now, I know this might be pretty hard to see, but if you look very closely at this fig cutting, right here on top, there is a little bit of fuzzy mold. It almost looks like a little bit of dust. And this is why it's so important to be meticulous when you're a gardener. These cuttings or any plant that you raise, it's almost like having a little mini kid. You have to check on them every single day and make sure that they're doing well, because these diseases, they can pop up pretty quickly. But I've noticed on my cuttings just a little bit of fuzz here and there. There's a little bit that's forming along the side of this Italian 258 cutting. It's going to be too difficult to see, but you're just going to have to trust me, it's there. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to spray these down with a homemade mixture of hydrogen peroxide, because hydrogen peroxide is excellent at killing fungus and bacteria. Okay, what I have here right now is a clean, empty spray bottle. I got this spray bottle from AutoZone for, it was like $2.50. It was outrageously cheap. This is 3% hydrogen peroxide, and it's very important that you use 3% in order for the measurements in this recipe to work. In here is 10 tablespoons of water. So what I'm going to do is, by the way, it's 10 tablespoons of warm tap water. You don't want to use cold tap water, because you just don't want to spray your cuttings down with cold water. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take a funnel and I'm going to add in the 10 tablespoons of water. And then to that 10 tablespoons, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide solution. So again, this is 1 part hydrogen peroxide to 10 parts warm tap water. And that is all we're going to do there. We're going to put it in our spray bottle, and we're going to give it a little shake, and we're going to spray our cuttings down with this solution that I just made in this clean spray bottle. But before we do that, we are going to take the cuttings outside. You do not want to spray them in the bin. You don't want to create a hydrogen peroxide atmosphere. Hydrogen peroxide degrades rapidly upon contact with air. It's H2O2, the second oxygen molecule, separates very quickly. So it's going to rapidly degrade. We're going to spray them down outside, and then we're going to let them dry off a little bit before we put them back in our box. Okay, it's getting pretty dark pretty quickly. As you can see, the moon is out and the sun has set, so I need to do this as fast as I can. Now, the first thing I want to tell you is, don't just take my word with the formula that I'm giving you. Test spray. Try this solution on 1 cutting before you go ahead and spray down everything, because I don't want to be responsible for you damaging your cuttings by putting too strong of a hydrogen peroxide solution on them. Don't just trust some guy in the internet, even if you've trusted him before. The second thing is, originally, before I planted these cuttings, I sprayed them down with a 1 in 5, 1 part hydrogen peroxide to 5 parts water solution. But now that we have all this green growth, I'm cutting that strength in half, because I don't want to damage the greenery, and hydrogen peroxide can damage leaves, especially tender leaves. So that's why I'm using a 1 in 10 ratio. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to give this a test spray to make sure that this is a nice fine mist, and it is. So I'm going to give this a shake, and I'm going to gently mist all of my cuttings in a circle orientation that I put here. So you get them from the front, and now we're going to get them from the back. And there you have it. That is literally all that we are going to do here. Now, hydrogen peroxide, as I mentioned before, it rapidly degrades. It loses that second oxygen molecule on the H2O2 chain, and it'll just turn into pure water and oxygen. So we're going to give this about 15-20 minutes to dissipate, and then we're going to come back inside and put it in our humidity chamber again. It's pretty chilly out. It's only about 45 degrees right now, so I don't want to leave them out too long. Just enough for that extra oxygen molecule to detach and the hydrogen peroxide to go inert. Okay, here are the cuttings. They're back inside, nice and comfortable in my 70-degree house. I left them outside for about 15 minutes for the hydrogen peroxide to dissipate. Now they're back in the bin. I'm going to leave this dome lid off for probably for a couple hours. I'll put the lid back on before I go to bed because I want to make sure that all of that hydrogen peroxide fully dissipated, and then I will inspect these cuttings tomorrow to verify that the hydrogen peroxide solution did not burn any of the foliage. If I see damaged foliage, that means that the ratio of hydrogen peroxide to water, the difference was not great enough and I made it too strong and I need to dilute it more next time. So I'll check that tomorrow and report the results. Okay, it is Thursday, December 13th, and I made sure to give a full 48 hours before I reshot this video just to show you that the concentration of hydrogen peroxide that I used did not damage the leaves. So if I zoom in here, you'll see everything is nice and green. There is no damage at all from the hydrogen peroxide spray. But what is pretty cool is the one that I showed you before that had a little bit of fuzz all over the tip. That is pretty much gone. Let me see if I can zoom in there. Yeah. You can see the fuzz is all gone, and actually it looks like I can see a little bit of green in there. So that's well, maybe not. And you can also see that some of my other cuttings, they're really starting to leaf out pretty heavily. You can see that right here. This is a raspberry latte, and that is showing a nice little root there. I will do another video update in a few days to show all of the root development that I've had. I'm finally starting to see these cuttings come to life. So at this point, we just play the waiting game, and I try to keep them healthy. You have to keep them moist but not too wet to promote disease. You have to spray them occasionally to make sure they don't grow mold. And you just need to keep them in a humid environment so they don't dry out. At this point, we're just waiting for time, and we haven't even begun winter yet, but we're patiently waiting for spring. As always, thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do so you can keep up to date with regular updates. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.